All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll go ahead and find your seats, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a long line up against that wall, and a lot of folks want to be heard by the Rules Committee. So, if you would, Representative Hagan, if you'll get us started. Before we get started, I would like to ask Representative Taylor if she would to lead us in a word of prayer.
Thank you. Good morning, Father. Thank you for the day you've given us and the opportunity to serve you and the people of the state of Georgia. Please give us wisdom and discernment to make the decisions to help us all. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Representative Taylor. And Representative Hagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members, I have House Bill 1026 this morning. Same bill, third different number. You saw it twice last year. It's the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby. It's the bill that would make the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby our official Soapbox Derby. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have, but I feel like I've talked about this way more than I should have, and I just ask for favorable consideration to help me get it across the finish line.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Representative Hagan? Seeing none, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Representative?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Rules Committee. Looking at House Bill 368, what this bill does is it allows or moves Banks County, one of my districts, from the Piedmont Judicial Circuit to the Mountain Judicial Circuit. What has been happening for years to the circuit is two of the counties in this judicial circuit of Piedmont are very fast growing, two of the fastest growing counties in our state. And Banks County is not a growing county, doesn't have any projections at much, if any, growth. Thus, moving to the Piedmont District will put them in a more light judicial circuit, or excuse me, to the Mountain District will put them in a more like circuit with the ability to receive an opportunity for judge to be elected from Banks County as well as a DA to be elected. Currently, not in history has there been a judge live-in or been elected or run from Banks County for the Piedmont circuit. Same thing as for a DA. So that's it, members, and the reasons for asking for this move from one circuit to another.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Any questions for members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Is that a lady representative? Representative Daniels, I believe you're, if you wouldn't mind. If you'll come to the front, please, and present. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually have two bills to present today. One is House Bill 409. Let's start there. What this bill does, it was actually brought to me by a local municipal attorney, and he explained that in some of the ordinances for authorities, they are outdated, essentially. So what this bill does is allows local authorities like water and sewer authorities, we actually tailored it down just for those because that's where this issue comes up. But it allows them to dispose of real properties in a similar fashion to the counties. There's currently a gap about how to sell and grant easements. Nothing really clear about how to dispose of them. So when they're no longer needed, and it creates an issue when property owners try to sell their property. So the cost of getting an appraisal oftentimes is more than the easement itself. And so this is an attempt to kind of save local taxpayers some money on the appraisal process. I mean, it costs $800 to $1,000 sometimes for a $200 easement. It does encourage public record keeping to provide transparency to the public on the easements and how they're sold and given back. During committee, that was one of the questions, if it was going to prevent people from being able to keep their property, and the intent of this is actually to give it back to them. Really, it's just an attempt to streamline and modernize the process. And GMA is in favor and ACCG is neutral. I'll take any questions.
Okay, all right. I believe there is a question. Leader Beverly?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. To the author of the bill, I have a couple quick questions. Would this only allow local authorities to dispose of sewage, so it's just the authority that can do it? What if the county commission wanted to get involved and do it? What would happen?
Yeah,
then?
so this would allow, so there are a ton of authorities throughout the state, and they're all kind of different. A lot of them are older, and so what they have on the books is difficult for attorneys to find and do it properly. What this actually does is it brings it into compliance with what the counties already follow, to my understanding.
And then the second thing you said, you mentioned it, but you said this would help to give people their property back and not take it away from them. Could you please explain how that would work?
Yeah, so the way an easement works, when they have to put in a sewer line or something, they basically have to borrow the property from the owner. And really, they don't get a say. They just do the easement, the proper, and then when the easement is no longer needed, if the owner of the property would like to sell their property, a lot of times they have to go through hoops to do so because there's an easement on their property. And so the intent of this is to allow the authority to just give it back if it's no longer needed, so that the homeowner doesn't run into that.
Okay, all right, thank you. You said you had a second bill?
I do. And then I've got House Bill 1021. And we talk a lot up here about simple bills, but, and everybody kind of chuckles because every bill's not simple, but this one really is. All it does is it increases the child tax deduction from $3,000 to $4,000 per child for every family in the state. I think it's supposed to be roughly $150 million back in taxpayer pockets. And so I think this is going to be a good bill for the families in the state.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Rules Committee, I'm here to present under Modified Structure Rule HR 303, which is on the second page at the bottom, and in the enabling legislation, which is HB 585, which is third from the bottom on the first page. Essentially, what this legislation would do, if passed, it would allow for high growth school systems to be able to impose an impact fee on new construction. Today, we permit counties to do impact fees on new construction for roads, sidewalks, parks, libraries, etc., but for schools, we do not. Today, the existing tax digest effectively has to take that in. This would allow the exception for high gross school systems to be able to implement on new construction those impact fees.
All right, any questions? Speaker Pro Tem Jones.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I had a question. So it's restricted to high growth. What happens when a high growth county matures and is no longer a high growth county? Do they still retain the ability to impose impact fees?
So, Madam Pro Tem, inside of the legislation, you will see that as it comes down, it does allow the local school board to remove the impact fee. And we expect the local school board be, I'll say, cognizant to the demands of that particular school district to be able to take the impact fee down, reduce it, or completely eliminate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Representative Martin.
Gentlemen, to the author, I guess I would question if at such a time when there's not the 20%, would the gentleman consider that it automatically rescinds as opposed to the board taking action? I tend to think that might go make it come out off faster, but to take that under advisement. But my question is it not true that this may be happening in some counties, because it maybe not in the particular county you're targeting this to, but in some counties here in the metro area, we have development authorities that continue to give incentives for people to come and take property off the tax rolls for the municipal taxes, county taxes, and taxes of the Board of Education. And they continue to do that for literally tens of millions of dollars, maybe more over a 10-year period, and put our school systems in situations where they're forced to do this. And isn't it true? My big concern is I'd like to see us reel in those development authorities for giving away, writing checks that other governments, particularly school systems, have to write here in the metro area.
So, Mr. Chairman, obviously I don't want to necessarily go apples and oranges. I do agree with you. I think the development authorities should look to the local school boards and other, I'll say, associated government entities that are inside of that locality to make that determination, and today they do not. However, this is just going towards the idea that if you have a high growth system, they're right now having to go to the existing digest to build, because the current formula at the state level to build a new school is not, I'll say, adequate to handle the high trajectory of that high growth school system.
Just briefly, if the gentleman yelled, isn't it true that I understand they're apples and oranges, and I don't want to hurt your bill, but I did not want to let this moment pass without acknowledging the fact that our development authorities are inducing projects and leaving our school systems holding the sack.
Mr. Chairman, I do agree with you. And again, I would ask those development authorities, if not just through doing the right thing, possibly having us to ask them to do that. But I do believe that they should caucus them at the very minimum and possibly even ask for, I'll say, an affirmative vote.
Okay, all right. Leader Beverly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You keep referring to high growth, but when I look at the definition, what is it, high growth? It says new growth on the bill. It doesn't say high growth. And so new growth and high growth can be different. And what is the threshold for high growth or new growth? And can you help me to understand what you're saying, because I don't see it in the bill?
Yes, Mr. Leader. If you could refer to line 40, where we start with high growth school system shall mean, and then if you could then turn to lines 41 through 45, this is in HB 585, then you'll see we talk about a sustained 20% growth in the preceding 10-year period and total expenditures of $250 million.
Thank you. I didn't see that on my sheet. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, Mr. Leader.
Okay. Speaker Pro Tem Jones.
Well, thank you. I just had one follow-up question. With regard to the definition of a high-growth county, did you consider the automatic repeal of the impact fees when the county no longer is a high-growth county and it becomes mature? Because when I look at the Atlanta metro area, as you go out in concentric circles, they're going to become high-growth, but then they'll become mature, like, say, a DeKalb County used to be a high-growth county. Because eventually we could have the whole greater North Georgia area become defined as one.
Yes, so Madam Pro Tem, if I could direct you to lines 87 through 94. In 87, we effectively say that these impact fees shall be valid for only a decade, and then the fee may be extended for 5 years provided that there has been a 3% increase, and then at any time through resolution, the school board can lower those or remove those. So what we expected was to, I believe the point that the Pro Tem is making is we do expect to see this type of hockey stick growth and then possibly a lowering of that growth, and then at some point it becomes steady state where they're not eligible to do it anymore because of the fact that they're not within the first 10 years, they're not within the 5, and they're no longer growing at a 3% clip.
But they would be eligible to continue them. They would have to, by resolution, remove them. Have you ever seen a school board remove a tax?
I have never seen a government entity typically remove a tax. However, if I could refer you to 90, 91, and 92, the end of 90 says, provided that the school system has experienced an increase of 3% in the number of students enrolled in at least one of the preceding 5 years. So at the end of the day, knowing that if they started in 25, they can go to 35. Line 89 speaks to the idea of extending it for 5-year periods. That's 89 and 90. And then 91, 92, and 93 speak to the idea of the 3% in order to maintain that for 5 more years. And then at some point, they do have the ability to pull that off when effectively they either go off of the 3% growth or they go steady state.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Whit Burchett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairman, to my friend over there, we're going to have to, this is just the enabling statute here, and then you've got a constitutional amendment, is that right?
Yes, HR 303.
Okay, all right. And as I understand the impact fees, will it be assessed, based on the units or family units or per development, or are we just leaving it up to the Board of Education?
So Mr. Whip, if you could go to lines 52 through 63, you will see starting in 52, before imposing educational impact fees, etc., there's effectively going to be what's called on 56 an Educational Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee. That is per the code section 3671.5. That is made up, if you look at the current impact fees that are implemented by the counties, it's effectively 50%, I'll say, folks in property, real estate, building, etc., and then 50% from the community. That commission or that committee will advise the Board of Education. I would expect, though I don't want to bind our Board of Education, I would expect the answer to be any type of new construction in the residential area that would be expected to put children into, I'll say, the schools. For instance, I don't expect retirement, I don't expect any commercial buildings, things like that, to be able to be levied an impact fee, because effectively I don't believe the commission or, the committee or the BOE would expect them to yield a child into the school system.
Right.
And Mr. Whip, if I could clarify one thing, this is on new construction. So if I bought the new home today and you purchase it from me next year, it's not reimposed. It's only on me, on effectively the first buyer.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Quickly, Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To my friend, two questions. One is, what are the uses of the fee? And by that, usually we look at, from a point of view, their capital or operating, uses of a fee. So that's my first question. What can these fees be used for?
So effectively, these fees can be used for, we expect that to be primarily capital fees in terms of the building of new schools. However, there's going to have to be an expectation in a high-growth school district. Any Board of Education is going to have to make the decision on, do they expand a current school or do they build a new school out of the ground? So that is also going to be considered capital expenditures. So that would be anything from new portables to expansion in terms of actual four walls within that school, driveways, et cetera, to be able to accommodate new buses. The ability to be able to tap these, not for operating fees, but for capital fees, or capital expenditures, excuse me.
And thank you. My second question, though, regards, and this is in general about impact fees, that we see this issue in other parts of legislation and other issues dealing with local governments, that a fee usually is commensurate with the value of a service, okay? So how would you value that? Because we have issues today where we're trying to fix areas where fees are being charged, impact fees are being charged, but they're really new revenue sources versus an impact where that fee is supposed to help offset maybe the cost of something, but it's measured and it's very specific, so that it's not a revenue stream that is there, if that makes sense with my question, sir.
Chairman, it makes complete sense, because the question has to be, if a high-growth school system has to build, say, a new high school at the cost of $70 million, the question becomes should that $70 million be borne by the existing tax digest, in other words, the people who live in that school district today, or should it be borne by the existing digest and the new people coming into the 100-home, 1,000-home subdivision? My argument, sir, is that it should be borne by the existing digest and by the additional 1,000 homes that are being built in that community or in that subdivision, because at the end of the day, whether or not that subdivision, if you have 2, 3, 4 children, you put them into the school system, at the end of the day, the cost of educating that child is effectively the same, give or take some, I'll say, some QBE deviations that we don't need to go into. So we believe it's important that each one of those new construction homes, if they're expected to put children into the school system, have the ability to levy out that tax or that fee.
Madam Chair, one last quick question, if I may. Has, in an instance, has the high growth areas that you're seeing that probably are asking for this or advocating for this, have they exhausted their eSPLOS? Because I know my county is very good about new growth and eSPLOS funds that, again, spreads it to the whole county and helps pay for those capital constructions of new schools. And I didn't know how that would work together, eSPLOS and this, or are people using the existing eSPLOS effectively?
So, Chairman Knight, that's a fair question. Take Forsyth County, which is my home county. It would be considered a high-growth school district. Our annual budget for our schools is around $600 million. The indebtedness of the school system started to reach upwards of almost $1 billion because of the fact that we had to build, and please don't, I think it's 5 high schools, I think it was 11 middle schools, and I don't remember how many elementary schools in a decade. So at the end of the day, we could not rely on the state to be able to draw down the cash fast enough. So we had to go to the existing digest, which effectively put us in a position that we had to take out additional bonds, additional eSPLOS, et cetera, to be able to fund that.
All right, okay, there are still several questions. As a result, I'm going to ask that everybody that does have questions just get with Chairman Jones offline. There'll be plenty of time, I'm sure, on the floor. And he is always open by email to chat and answer those questions that you may or may not have. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to go ahead and move on. Time is running late. We do have several people on the board. Thank you, Chairman Jones. And so we're just going to run quickly, unless you have just a very, very quick, very pertinent question for the following presenters. Just please hold your question, just ask them offline. Thank you very much. Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, bring you HB 970. It's on second page. It's education as well, but a little more straightforward than the previous. This is an update on our REACH scholarship program that many of you are familiar with, and from Georgia Student Finance, Chairman Riley over there has helped, and it's a shared cost, local and state, and so this is an update and modernization to that bill.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Representative Lavery.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you House Bill 947. I want to thank the Majority Leader for allowing me to carry this bill and for all of his hard work that I've been able to stand on his shoulders on. The bill makes long overdue reforms to the structure of compensation paid to our state-paid judges. We have a lot of different categories of judges, but this only affects state-paid judges, ones that are state employees. That's Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, statewide business court, and Superior Court judges. The bill does not purport to raise or appropriate any money for that pay. It changes the structure of the pay. So we're trying to move toward a system in which the salaries, at least for the Superior Court judges across the state, are more uniform and not subject to such wide disparity as they currently are under our current system, in which there's a state-paid portion of the pay plus a local supplement. Some of the supplements aren't very good, some of the supplements are great, but as a result you've got a very wide disparity, and I believe it's also resulted in the state-paid portion that we pay being terribly undervalued. We currently rank 49th in the country in terms of our statewide pay. We're thank goodness for West Virginia, because they hold the 50th spot. But with the supplements, there's great disparity. Some judges get as high as 45th in the nation, some get up into the top 10. And that's just, I don't know of any other system or any other state-paid positions across the state where we do that or allow that. So we're trying to, we won't completely eliminate it, but we'll try to slow it down. So it sets a maximum amount for the state-paid portion, doesn't appropriate any money or require us to pay a specific amount. It just sets a maximum that's tied to a base rate of pay that's based on the Northern the Northern District. It allows judges to opt in because many will not actually see their pay go up, they'd see their pay go down. Ultimately, though, as new judges are appointed, they would be under the new system. It also limits the supplements. It calls them locality pay, and it limits it to 10% of the state amount. And then it also tries to provide a suspension of the effect of a lot of local laws which tie certain local officials pay to Superior Court judge pay. So this gives our local jurisdictions a year to try to sort that out, and if they need to have local acts amended or changed, they would be able to do that next year.
Okay.
So that's the bill at about 900 miles an hour, Madam Chair, but I know time is late.
Okay. Minority Whip Park. Quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the bill. The one question I had was, is there a floor set for judicial pay? Just because I know on line 331 it says that the salary shall not exceed a certain amount, but since the legislature will now be determining the salary per year to protect the independence of the judiciary, is there a floor?
There is not a floor set in this bill. There is a constitutional provision which limits our ability to cut a judge's pay during the current term of office. But no, I would say the floor is limited to the wise and sound discretion and judgment of the legislature as appropriators.
Thank you. That makes me a little...
Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. There are several other questions. I would ask for you to get with Chief Whip Leverett offline if you have any other questions with regards to the bill. We're going to take the opportunity and move on.
Thank you.
My almost seatmate, Victor. Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This morning, committee, I bring to you two bills. The first one is on page 3, fourth from the bottom. It's House Bill 912. This is a follow-up to House Bill 121 last year, where we allowed voluntary registration and tagging of multi-purpose off-highway vehicles. This bill simply places that category of vehicle in the exemption from personal property ad valorem tax. These vehicles are already charged sales tax at the time of purchase.
All right, thank you. No questions?
The second bill, Madam Chair, is on page 2, third from the bottom. This is House Bill 1044. This is the rewrite or follow-up to House Bill 193 from last year that was passed by both chambers and vetoed by the governor. This last year's bill raised the public works purchasing local purchasing limit from $100,000 to $250,000. Had not been adjusted in 20-something years, since the year 2000, since it was put in place. This bill, the difference between last year's bill and this bill also includes state agencies that wanted to be included in that cap raise.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning. It's good to be with y'all. I'm on page 2, about halfway down, House Bill 982. This is the Governor's High Demand Career Initiative bill. This legislation basically will empower the State Workforce Investment Board to determine which careers are high demand, how those are chosen, how they're removed. If you have a regional career that's specific to your region, that can be done. Currently, there's a lot of confusion on how these lists are determined. There's several players that play into this space. This bill will make it easier, more concise, and streamline who's in charge of that. That is the bill.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
No questions? Thank you so much. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I bring to you House Bill 1015, page 3, third from the end. House Bill 1015 is one of the governor's initiatives and priorities for 2024. Basically, what it's doing is a 10 basis point acceleration of what this House led on in 2022 by dropping our income tax from 5.99 to 5.49. This extra 10% basis points will take us from 5.49 to 5.39, which is an additional $300 million. That's the bill.
All right. There is a question. Minority Whip Park.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it not true that the average working Georgian would receive a benefit of approximately $34 a year under this bill?
I do not know that answer, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Representative Martin.
Is it not true that in aggregate, the Georgians would get $300 million under this bill?
That is correct.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chairman Martin, for that clarification. Seeing no further question, thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is on page, this bill is on page 1. Bill number 2 is House Bill 1034, LC 550163, and it is a bill to make the National Sugarcane Syrup Day in Georgia, listed on November, the 4th Friday of November, to designate that day. And the reason why that day was picked was because traditionally sugarcane was made or gathered around the family during Thanksgiving time, and they produced it on that day after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Will I get any sorghum syrup if we pass this?
What's that?
Will I get any sorghum syrup if we pass this?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it. No questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if it please, can I introduce one other bill, if it's possible?
Certainly.
Okay, so this bill is House Bill 907, LC 394139S, and it's on the yellow sheet.
Oh. That's on the yellow sheet.
Yeah.
It's been recommitted and it hasn't come back up on the blue sheet yet.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Representative Sains?
Thank you, Madam Chair and esteemed members of committee. I have two bills to present, neither as sticky as the previous one heard. House Bill 925, third from the top in the second page, the PRAISE Act, which stands for Protecting Religious Assembly in the States of Emergency, would simply give most favored status to institutions of faith in times of emergency. So if any other business is allowed to open, our churches, our synagogues, our mosques are as well. It passed unanimously through committee. It's supported by Governor Kemp's team. We're lucky, though 30 states have already enacted it, we're lucky that we haven't had to utilize it directly before.
Okay, all right. Whit Park, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. If a local government decided to open its public parks, outdoor facilities in the midst of a pandemic, airborne virus, let's say, would this bill require indoor facilities to also be open, including places of worship?
The bill refers to business entities. I would leave it to the definition of that business entity if you would feel a park would be included in such.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And
you said you had a second bill?
Yes, Madam Chair. It is on the second page as well, fifth from the bottom before structured rules. House Bill 1022, Colton McNeil Act, came from a individual in my district, but it simply adds to the cruelty to children status for first and second degree. If the child is a disabled minor, it adds to the sentencing structure of that individual. It recognizes the heinous acts when it's performed under a most vulnerable among us.
Okay, all right. Wonderful bill from a wonderful committee. I see no questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Sains. Representative?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have House Bill 576 on the blue sheet, first page, fourth from the bottom. This bill seeks to expand upon the spirit of Gracie's Law, which was passed in 2020, by ensuring that COVID vaccination status is not a sole barrier to an organ transplant. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, all right. Whit Park, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. How many people have been discriminated or denied an organ transplant because they didn't get a COVID vaccine?
Can't answer that question necessarily, but I can tell you about 36% of the transplant centers require a vaccine, require a COVID vaccine.
Thank
you. I don't know the number though.
That's 36% in Georgia?
Across the nation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no more further questions. Thank you, Representative. I appreciate it. Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to present House Bill 461, page 3 on the blue sheet. All it does is ensure that the proceeds of regulatory, sorry, my phone flipped on me here. The proceeds of a regulatory activity is not used to fund general operations of a local government. Section 5, line 39, it updates that to include extensive renovation projects, and by doing so, it sets that value at $75,000. And because we were able to hook that into option 5, that we deleted option 6. This has been work done for a long time. It's a compromise language, and that's the bill.
Okay, all right. Seeing no questions, thank you, Representative Thomas. Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Representative Reeves.
Thank you. Chairwoman Ballinger received notification to present House Bill 1019. I presented it yesterday, but did want to come and respectfully request approval of the statewide homestead tax relief bill.
Okay, all right.
And on House Bill 628, request permission to present that at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Representative?
Good morning. It's a little heavy subject here. House Bill 1048, making cornbread the state bread of Georgia. I figured with all the polarizing topics we discussed, why not put our arms around each other and eat a little cornbread, break a little bread together. So hope you can find the beauty of this legislation. It can be whatever kind of cornbread you want it to be, baby.
Okay, it's still on the yellow sheet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does it come with Vidalia onion? That's the question. Representative, save the best for last.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I bring you to HB 871. So it's on the third page, second from the top. There's been some confusion in some counties as to whether or not the surviving spouse of a disabled veteran had to stay in the same county or in the same home they lived in at the time of the death of the disabled veteran in order to keep the homestead exemption. This bill clarifies and provides consistency for the surviving spouse and minor children of disabled veterans regarding this benefit. It does require 2/3 vote and a referendum. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Seeing no questions. Thank you very much. All right, there are a couple of motions that we need to make. I'm going to make a motion to recommit House Bill 53 to the Natural Resources and Environment Committee. Do I hear a move? Second? It's gone. House Bill 974, moving that bill back to Governmental Affairs. Is there a move? Is there a second? It's gone. So House Bill 53 has gone back to natural resource, has been recommitted back to Natural Resources and the Environment, and House Bill 974 has been moved back to Governmental Affairs. That having concluded the business of the Rules Committee for this morning, we are hereby adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.